Welcome to the Databricks Skill Builder series. We're glad you're here.
What's up, data people? My name is Hobbs. I'm a senior solution architect with Databricks, and I've spent a long time in the BI space. And I want to share a bit of my vision for where I think things are going. Because to tell you a bit of a story, I used to run what were called dashboard in a day workshops for Microsoft, and they talked about in those the three waves of business intelligence. And I'm pretty sure we're moving into a fourth wave now, and that's sort of what I want to walk you through today. In order to appreciate where we're going, I want you to see the history of where we've been. So let's walk through some of this today. All right. The vast majority of analytics comes down to questions like this one. What's the total revenue for my accounts? They're not terribly exciting questions, and when you read them, they don't seem all of that complicated on the surface. But it ends up being far harder than it looks to give answers to these sorts of questions. Where the business leader who asks the question feels this is straightforward, you actually start to take each of those words one at a time and have to understand what they mean. When I say revenue, how are we accounting for revenue? Is it gross revenue or something else? Are we accounting for taxes and discounts? And how does that play into profit? All these questions bubble up. Say active customer. Is that someone who's purchased in the last 30 days? Is it anyone who's made a purchase ever? And so this translation between here's what the person said and how those terms are really carefully defined because it has to be met with a table on a column, that gets tricky, especially when there are three or four layers in between of people trying to interpret that same logic. When you talk about business intelligence and what you're building, it also turns out that there's like five different personas of people who all care about dramatically different things in this space. The leaders at the top, they want to have things which are ready for AI. They want to be competitive. They want to have strategic systems. They're going to be asking about ROI and profitability. But you move down a layer to your typical manager. Managers are more focused on budgets and costs. They want their teams to be productive. They're being held to some set of KPIs that they need to hit, and they need to know, well, can I actually staff this thing? Could I hire someone with these skills to do what I need to do? Layer down from them is IT. All of those back-end IT people, they're mostly thinking about maintenance. If I build it, am I going to have to own this forever? Am I capable of owning this forever? What if I get audited? What does the governance and security look like? So they get those sets of questions answered. Analysts who are building things to share are focused on reuse. Can I build it once and have it used many times? They've typically got a long backlog. They want to build and deploy quickly. And then the business people, which outnumber everybody else 10 to 1, they don't want any of those things. They don't care about any of those things. They're just going to say, how fast is it? Is it customized to my particular situation? Is it easy to use? Can I do it without red tape? Now, looking at those sweeping sets of concerns, if everybody wants something different, it's very difficult to build a tool which meets everyone's needs, which gives every one of these personas what they're after. So let's look at the history of some of the things that have happened in the BI space. In the earliest days of BI, I'm thinking the 90s, right? IT owned pretty much everything. The whole tech stack was there. They had all of the databases, all of the querying tools, all the connections, all of the logic. They had all of the staffing, and they had their own language for describing these incredibly technical systems that they were working inside of. Business people, recognizing that it was a very technical world and hard to get into, their role was pretty much to say, well, I know the problem I want to solve, so I'm going to write that down on a ticket so that I can make a good decision with data, and they're going to pass that across to IT. You can see already, and from what I said on the previous slide, there's a lot of miscommunication that happens here. Data is complicated, and as far as I can tell, that's not going away. Data is and always will be complicated. And you've got these different incentives for one person cares about one thing, one cares about another. You've got these different languages, the language of the business, the language of IT, and the result of these things coming together is that this system, well, it was okay. It worked. It tended to be slow. You've got a ticket-based system. There's a lot of opportunity lost during this miscommunication and mistranslation process between IT and the business. And so eventually business people say, forget it. I'm losing too many opportunities. I'll just solve it in Excel. And that was the world we all lived in. Late 90s, early 2000s, now we're starting to get analysts. As people appreciate the value that data brings, they move to this world where an analyst is really embedded into the business itself. And the analyst is the translator. They're the middleman between the two groups. They get to go back and forth. IT gives up a little control. They're going to keep the data, the connections in the database, but the analysts get some of the reporting tools. They get access to the data that they need. So they're given authority in some ways. And in exchange, IT says, would you please work with the business to gather their requirements? So now the analyst has to speak both languages. It's kind of a unique skill set. They need to understand the technical requirements from IT, and they need to understand the business requirements from the business. So they sit in the middle. They translate back and forth, and this is a better system, right? Things are going better now this way. But a new set of problems arises. Now we're at a place where your given analyst is overwhelmed. They've got a backlog 1,000 items deep. Everyone that you roll out some report with the expectation it's going to serve everyone's needs, and 10 minutes later you get an email from 10 different people who all want 10 different slight changes to that master gold standard report that you were after. So they're overwhelmed. They can't keep up with all of the nuance of everyone's unique situation. So again, the system is too slow, opportunities are lost, and the business people say, forget it, I'll just do it in Excel. If I had to use a rough metaphor for this, if you think of this sort of like imagine a restaurant, the kitchen staff, that's IT, the ingredients is the data. You can make a lot of different meals out of the ingredients. You can make a lot of different reports and analytics and decisions off of the data. The analyst is the waiter. They go back and forth between the kitchen and the customer, who is the business, right? So customer sits down, they place an order, the analyst takes it, translates it to something that IT can understand. The customer says, I want a burger and fries. The analyst has enough savvy to know, well, the kitchen is going to want to know how that burger should be cooked and what kind of fries do you want, ketchup and mustard, those sorts of questions. So they translate between the two. But again, if you've got 500 customers per waiter in that metaphor, that doesn't work all that well. Okay, phase three, semantic layers. Semantic layers become essentially the menu for the restaurant. A semantic layer is an actual object, a digital object, if you will, which serves as that translation engine. So it takes the technical requirements from IT and it maps them one for one with a business requirement. When the business says revenue, the technical requirement is mapped to that thing. And now we've got something which everyone can reference when they're asking analytical or BI questions. So again, like a menu, on it is going to say, here's the cheeseburger, and you can have the following toppings. Tell us which ones you want, and please let us know how you like your burger cooked. That information is all captured here inside of the semantic layer. IT still keeps the data itself and the connections in the database. The analyst now is a builder of the semantic layer. They create the menu, and then they pass it around and make sure that everyone agrees with what's inside of it. Business people are now at a place where pretty much they can do basic self-service analytics. They can go to the menu and they can order anything that's on the menu, right? Because that's what the menu is there for, to tell them what meals they can get. Better system than the previous two phases, but it has its own weaknesses. One of these is that you can't order something not on the menu. Maybe you want a meal and it's not on the menu. It's not like it's impossible. The ingredients in the kitchen are there, but they've never been asked for this before and it's not yet on the menu. So when that happens, then you're back to, okay, ask my analyst to update the semantic layer with the additional logic that I need so that I can get this thing. That ends up being a really technical process most of the time. And the companies which moved in to fill this gap, if phase one is the early 90s, right, and phase two is like late 90s through the mid 2000s, phase three here is you get into like 2010, 2015. The companies that moved in to fill these gaps, they were providing this in a proprietary format, and it meant copying your data out of the data warehouse and bringing it into their tool. So these are some of the problems faced. And again, what happens is the business eventually says, if I can't get it on the menu, and I still really need it, forget it. I'm going to go around. It's going to be back to Excel again for me. Here's what some of that phase three architecture typically looks like. You have a platform at the bottom for all your data. This is where you do your governance. This is where you do your data engineering, all of those good things. And then you take all of that and you pass it out to a BI system. BI system makes dashboards. It's going to have the semantic layer. You're copying it out. And normally, once you've copied out those systems, many of them are designed to be in memory so that they perform quickly. But now you've got a stark contrast between performance and scale on this. And you're having to govern things in two places. So you've got a security layer at the BI level and a security layer at the data warehouse level. This is the way things were typically done. Databricks is showing up in the world during the middle of phase three, where, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 15 years old now. So we're coming of age in this time, and we decided we wanted to build tools which A, were open source, whoever possible, open coding languages, open storage formats, and B, we wanted something ready for artificial intelligence. There are four pieces to our BI stack today. Dashboards, which is the most straightforward. Genie, which is a natural language interface. You ask a question in your native language and you get an answer back. Metric views, which is sort of the semantic layer, that menu piece that sits underneath. And then Databricks One, which is a serving layer. It's a portal for business users to come in and get the things that they've asked for. If you can successfully do BI in the data warehouse layer, there are some real benefits to this. One of those benefits is now your governance and your security and your semantics, they all live in one spot, so you manage and secure them in one spot. If you do it in the cloud, the way that Databricks handles things with separated compute and storage, you can scale to pretty much anything, and you're not going to be locked into some I've reserved this hardware for a month kind of format. You're just going to pay for what you use, and if you don't use it, you don't pay for it. And then finally, because it's all together, right? All in this connecting tissue, this unity catalog that we talk about that brings everything together. Now you can begin to have intelligence where systems recognize what's happening. They can connect the dots between different pieces. You can see how A led to B, and this dashboard points at this metric view, which points at these four tables, which were produced by this data engineering process. And you can track things all the way back that way. So real quick, let me talk you through these four pieces. Dashboards, that's our front end tool. It's a relatively straightforward tool. We do have agents which will let you build these things on your behalf. So if you're playing around in Databricks and you want a dashboard, I strongly encourage you, try this. Go up to the top right. There's a little icon, and if you hover, it looks like a diamond sort of. And if you hover over it, it becomes a genie's lamp. Click on that. And you can build a dashboard by just asking for a dashboard. The more information you pass in, if you've got a color scheme you want, if you want to hide more of the axes than is typical, if you want descriptive text, right? Just put that into a little prompt and it will build a dashboard for you. It'll build out all the parts and pieces. It'll build out all of the slicers and filters, all the charts and graphs. It'll follow the story, the analytical story that you want it to do. Genie is the second piece. Every dashboard can come equipped with a Genie embedded in it. So there'll be a little button when you publish your dashboard, and that will take you out to Genie, where you can then click and ask a question. Why is this useful? It's useful so that the analyst is not overwhelmed with requests for new dashboards. A lot of times, somebody doesn't want a whole new dashboard. They just happen to have an ad hoc what if question that they need an answer to, but they don't know how to build the dashboards themselves, so they don't have the proper permissions, and so they end up stuck asking the analyst. Genie is designed for those kinds of ad hoc queries. It's designed so that analysts, I'm speaking to you now, analysts of the world, if you have been stuck in a cycle of owning one-off reports forever, this is a better way. This is a better future for you. And I say this full-heartedly from my own experience. If you can give someone this kind of interface and you can confirm that it's accurate and appropriate and the right calculations and the right tables, then they can answer their own questions and you don't have to build them one-off reports anymore. So that's Genie. These two tools come together, and I mentioned already that there are agents built into this. And so this leads me to what I said at the very beginning of the talk, which is I think we're headed for a phase four. I think we're headed for a place where agents are the most common users of business intelligence. If that's correct, if I'm right about this, and I see evidence of this in my own working with companies, then that semantic layer, it has to be in an open format that agents can query. It has to be in a language which as many agents as possible can speak natively without needing some complicated translation middle step, right? We need to build tools from the bottom up ready for this world where agents outnumber business users in the field of analytics and BI. So When agents come to BI tools, there are some things that are really important. They don't have any of the information in your head. You're used to certain things. Agents come in totally empty, right? They don't have any idea. Now, if you're building agents directly in Databricks, you do benefit some from things like Unity Catalog. But for a minute, let's assume outside agents here, right? So you need this BI layer to do the calculation and join logic on your behalf so that it passes correctly how to answer analytical questions to these agents who are coming in sort of blind. You need things like synonyms, which we can capture, right? You need things like a comment, a description of every calculation so that it can be matched to the way the user said whatever question that they had. All of this needs to come together in this layer, along with the things that IT wants about security and the rest of it. One of the places this plays out when you first get started with Genie is it's got an agent mode. We used to call it deep research, but now it's just been changed to agent, which let you ask complex multi-step analysis problems. My favorite question to ask these, if you get a chance, is ask it to look for statistical anomalies and then do a root cause analysis. It's a vague question, but I tell you, I have been flabbergasted at the kinds of conclusions and some of them the kind of insights that I would never have reached without the 5 or 10 step analysis that it's doing. I mentioned before that we have this semantic layer that sits underneath. We call them metric views. Metric views serves as that menu, and it serves out to all of these tools, both internally, if you're using our dashboards or something like Genie, but also externally. Anything that can write SQL code can reach in and use this layer. So that is designed to communicate then with not any one, it's not in any proprietary format, in any proprietary language. It should speak to everybody, is the goal here. All of this then surfaces, all four of these pieces come together in a way that both supports agents and analysts and IT and your managers and everybody else, right? All that comes together into a single serving layer we call Databricks One. Databricks One is just a portal, right? It's not fancy. It's a portal to say, here's the Genie spaces and dashboards, and in some cases, apps that I have built for my business users so they don't have to worry about all of the other navigation. They just come here and ask their questions. One of the cool things that's built into Databricks One now is that in that initial search box that you see there, where it says, what would you like to know? That is actually across all Genie spaces the user has the right permissions for, which means they can ask a question about sales. They can ask a question if they've got access to HR data about HR, if they've got supply chain questions, if they've got, if you're in healthcare, they've got patient information. They can ask a question in one spot and it will get directed to the right underlying semantic layer. So one interface to ask a question across any data product that your company has made available to you. We've had a fair bit of success with this, lots of different people using us. Customers, there's a Gartner Peer Insights gathers ground grassroots kind of level interaction. Lots of love there. Thank you to everyone who shouted out and gave us a 4.7 out of 5 stars on all of this. If you're interested in seeing these pieces play out, there's a few other videos here on Databricks Skill Builders which you can watch, which will take you through them one at a time, and you can see how all these tools come together. In the meantime, thank you very much for your time.